And welcome to the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Welcome back. We have a local cops court case we're going to discuss, an unusual traffic stop in PA that you found. I had not seen this until you sent it to me. And then we're just going to talk about the economic state. I jokingly put savings stocks or Shiba. I'm going to make Mark pick which one he wants to put
Shiba
everything into. I knew that's what you were going to go with. Before we get to all of those, Mark, how are you feeling today?
We talked about this yesterday. I still feel good, and I'm just waiting. I just talked to someone else today. He's like, my throat has never hurt this bad. They actually felt so bad they couldn't even go get tested. They had to get healthy enough to go get a test or to go to wherever they go to get tested, and then found out that they were positive. So I know some people are going to get through the winter and not get the Omicron or whatever, but it's just I'm almost feeling like it's a matter of time for most of us. So I still feel good right now. I'm just for how much longer?
Yeah, no, it's certainly there is this feeling of I hate using the word doom because for most
that's
of us,
what I was thinking too.
I don't want to use the word doom though, because for most of us, especially those who have been vaccinated, it's going to be a cold and it is what it is. But there is kind of this lingering, if you haven't gotten it yet, there is this feeling of waiting, right? This idea of you're just kind of sitting around and you're just kind of waiting for your turn in a weird way.
Yes, I feel like I'm waiting my turn. And I don't know.
Yeah. So two interesting stories. Let's kick it off. We're going to dive into this one first. The article on Penn Live that was released: felony charges have been dismissed against a former Williamsport police officer accused of using the state JNET record system to obtain information on women. If you read the full story, I think it's fair to say that the information was to be used on women in a attractive manner, a sexual manner. There's a stalking side to this that I didn't want to necessarily put in the title, but if you read through the entire story for yourself and make your own decision, I think it's very fair to say that.
Well, I was actually I was assigned here to go cover. They had a preliminary hearing that they had to talk about things, and I had to cover it. And the JNet system that police officers use is to trace license plates, is basically the layman's terms for it. And they had this guy. He's no longer a police officer. He had many charges. Some had to do with other things, like a girlfriend of his or a girl he was in a relationship with. There was a shoplifting charge that I think he made go away. There was something about her friends and a charge that he kind of got them off the hook, I think. And he was either convicted of or he's still being, those were not dismissed or whatever. But these charges were that he was using this system, this JNet system, to track women's when he saw a woman, he would check her license plate, and then he could find out where she lived. And it was some number, like 20 some different women, and it was accessed like 90 some times. And it was even proven that he accessed it while he was on vacation in North Carolina, I think it said. So, but the judge ruled, and they based it off a Supreme Court ruling, that because he is legally allowed to do this with his job, that he could not be convicted for it. The prosecuting attorney, while we were in court, was like, well, but it's not, he's allowed to use it for his job, but this was not for his job. It just doesn't give him access. So the question then becomes, like, can bank people, because they can access your account, are they allowed to access your account whenever they want to? Or it just, I don't know how exactly the law is written, because one of the things that the judge ruled on, and I don't know if I agree with this, but they're like, if you're given a company-owned computer and you send a personal email, you are using you're using the computer for something that it wasn't designed to do, or what It was not, I shouldn't say not designed to do, but it's a company-owned computer. You come to work, you're supposed to use your company-owned computer for company work. So if you do any online shopping or you send any personal emails, now you've kind of violated what it's against. My argument to that would be, it depends what the work policy is. If your boss says you can send emails and you can do online shopping, then I don't really know what you're in violation of. I would think common sense would say there should be a rule that that police officers are allowed to use this in the scope of their job, but not in to find information about people for personal reasons. But anyway,
so let me just let's backtrack because let's go through some of the numbers and just some of the things here. The judge was David C. Klementyk. He cited a U.S. Supreme Court decision in dismissing 28 counts of unlawful use of a computer. So as you were just discussing, that was the decision that he cited, right? The example that you just gave. Yeah. So 28 counts of unlawful use were dismissed. To go even further, just into the details of this, Durr, the officer who resigned in September, was accused of using the system 94 times between June of 2015 and December 11th, 2019, to obtain unauthorized information about 26 individuals, including one female, a total of 18 times. So seems pretty damning to me. The word in there that kind of, again, we're thinking out loud, the word in there that surprises me is unauthorized. The fact that they were willing to use that language to obtain unauthorized information in itself, to me, sounds damning, and it's surprising to me that it would be dismissed.
When I read through, and one thing I don't know if I said before, he's no longer a police officer. Apparently, he resigned. I didn't know if he was let go or he resigned, but it sounds like something that he was probably asked to resign, but that's just purely speculation.
But
so I wonder if it's almost like. Well, I was going to say, from the numbers that you just said, I wonder if it's like the one woman, 16 or 18 times. Is there a weird way that he almost kind of diluted it by accessing, what did it say, 20 some different women? Like if he just kept doing, if this was just one woman repeatedly, it seems like stalking. If it's a bunch of women, most of them just a time or two, and then one woman a bunch of times, did that somehow make it seem better?
I don't know. I mean, in the court of public opinion, I think both examples you just gave sound like stalking to me in the court of public opinion. But again, the court of public opinion does not decide these things. One of the things, and I just wanted to clarify, the JNet system is for authorized police work and personal use is prohibited by law. The judge, Klementyk, is dismissing the computer counts cited, the Supreme Court decision in a case in which a police officer for money ran a license plate in a law enforcement computer database. Klementyk pointed out that Durr was not hacking to gain access to JNet because he was, in fact, an authorized user. So to me, from reading this, it sounds as if there's a clear distinction. The argument was more about, was he authorized or unauthorized, not so much the act of what he was doing as an authorized user. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah. I mean, and that's where the law gets into this gray area.
Yeah.
And it just, I mean, on the surface, it just doesn't really seem like what he was doing wasn't right. And maybe at the end of the day, I don't know. Maybe they're just by accessing, like, I don't know what he did with this information. Did he drive by the people's houses? Did he stop and knock on their doors? Because he could have been a nuisance, but it doesn't mean he did anything like extreme. So maybe him not having his job is the fair punishment, shall we say? But I don't know.
There's also, the judge went on to say also, what Durr was accused of speaks specifically about access and not use. So kind of what I was saying before, whatever the judge was trying to decide, either he was using the wording in favor of the police officer or whatever was charged against him, the language allowed them to basically say, this is not about how we used it. This is about, was he allowed to use it? And that is how he's getting off. They also wrote, if it exceeds authorized use, criminalizes every violation of a computer use policy, then millions of otherwise law-abiding citizens are criminals. So essentially the same
now,
idea,
hold on.
right?
Read that part again. That's the part that threw me off. Read that again.
So to say that something exceeds authorized use, to use that phrase to criminalize people who are using computers, it's essentially what you're saying is that millions of law-abiding citizens are criminals. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand the sentiment and what they're saying. So what they're saying is you and I have access every day to different things and different information, photographs, whatever it may be. How often you or I look up those things does not necessarily immediately incriminate us. And that's why I brought up to you, in the court of public opinion, this seems very, very simple. However, like you said, in the court system, the language kind of entangles it and kind of screws with it enough that you can broaden it out and say, well, listen, there's people in everyday life that are looking up somebody's information 15 times a year, and that's not incriminating. That act itself is not incriminating.
No, and I get that. The thing where I think this judge is just wrong is if you're at work, just because you use your work computer for personal use does not mean that you have violated anything. Your boss may not care. And if your boss doesn't care, then you're good. But even if your boss says you can't do online shopping at the job and you do it, now it puts you in peril with your employment status, but you haven't violated anyone else's rights. And that's now I'm sure I'm guessing the argument on the other side is where people live is public, but it's not public if you don't own the property. If you rent a place, like if you own a house, it's a courthouse record and people can go and look up every house you own. But if you just rent, then the only way someone would know where you live is if they ran your driver's license. So, I mean, there's a difference between shopping and like I said, shopping doesn't violate anyone's rights. Finding out finding out where someone lived just because you want to know as a police, that seems like a violation of their rights. So that's why I think this judge's example is stupid.
I don't disagree. I think also too, it feels as if they kind of threw out the context of, it's almost like they didn't throw in the idea that with a police officer, you take an oath and the oath is to protect and to serve. And I don't know who he was serving in this case, and I don't know who he was protecting in this case. And it feels like none of that context was taking into consideration in this. It feels like they just really tried to stick to the language and use the language in order to make something happen.
And maybe that's why, from the legal side, they looked at it legally, and from the job side, he's no longer at the job.
Right.
Because the job may have said, listen, no matter what the courts decide. Now, and I do think, and I mentioned this, and you have the article in front of you, I do think he was either found guilty or the other charges are still pending about shoplifting. And
there's a whole, I don't want to read through them all because there's a boatload of them here. And those ones have not been dismissed. I don't know if they're ongoing or if they've already been decided, but the only ones in this article, what has been dismissed are those obtaining information charges.
Okay.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. A little more, I guess we'll call it more lighthearted. This one, I saw this one, I started cracking up. Pennsylvania cops watched as a man removed a live deer from the trunk of his car during a DUI traffic stop and crossed the road to release the struggling animal. Did you actually see the video for this?
I did not watch the video. I don't know. I probably could, but it could be. But anyway, so they thought the guy was drunk. I think he was young too. I think it said he was 21.
He did not look old in the video.
And so they pull him over, and it's not a trunk, it's a hatchback. So they pull over, they put their flashlight, and they're like, there's a deer in the back. And I guess either they hit it or someone else hit it. And they were taking the deer home with them, but the deer was still alive. And they said that they noticed that they thought it was dead. They put it in the trunk. They realized it was still alive while they were driving. And then they were like, we're just going to take it home anyway. So I'm sure they were going to. I mean, I haven't seen. I'm guessing the deer was in bad shape.
It's hard to tell. Obviously, it's dark out, and police footage video is always, the dash cam is never the greatest angle or the greatest quality of film for a lot of this stuff. The part, I have heard of people picking up roadkill. I have heard of people picking it up and dropping it off somewhere else. I've heard of people removing animals. There's a lot of different reasons something like this could happen. I've never heard of a case where somebody thought the animal. I mean, it's straight out of Tommy Boy, right?
I was just going to say, how many people did not think of Tommy Boy?
That's exactly what it is. So to put something into your car that you believe has expired, and then all of a sudden it comes alive, and to keep driving, that's the other key part to the story. In the article that I had read, they continued on for several minutes, knowing that this deer was alive. Never pulling over, or never. I mean, the first thing I would do once you realize, like slamming on the brakes, right? I mean, you're pulling over right away.
No. Like,
you don't think
if you're stopping along the road like a roadkill, the fact that it's still alive a little bit, but not like they're just gonna take it home and kill it. It's not, that doesn't bother them.
So maybe I guess it depends on why or what the reason you're doing it for. But I think you're slamming on the brakes right away. I think there's no way you're driving with a live animal that you did not think was alive, and you're just you're going to keep going down the road.
I don't think it was like Tommy Boy. It didn't spring up from a coma. Like they just
No.
I'm sure it was badly damaged. I mean, they put it in the car anyway, and they picked it back up and took it out of the car. It's not like it was like, I mean, just think how bad a deer has to be hurt for you to be like, here, boy, here, let me pick you up and put you in the car.
I am amazed at how calm you are about this. You would have freaked out. You would have freaked out. You would have lost your mind.
Listen, I would have never stopped and picked it up anyway.
But
like, I'm not saying, I'm guessing the deer was close to a vegetative state. I'm thinking
when he gets it.
When he puts it down, does it run away?
When he pulls it out of the hatchback, it is kicking. Like, it is not.
Oh, okay.
It is not. It's not a vegetable. Like,
all right, that's not what I pictured then.
It is right now. Listen, I'm not saying it was in good shape, not in good shape. I wasn't there. It's not great footage, but let's put it this way: it's not like the deer is calmly waiting to be released back to the side of the road.
Now, let's go over this. You're from Blossburg. You grew up on a farm. How many of your friends picked up roadkill alongside the car or alongside the road, threw it in the back of the truck?
I mean, listen, I don't have like a count. I will say there are different reasons and motivations and things like why you would pick something off on the side of the road. You would be surprised at the reasons people do it and how often. And sometimes it's a positive. I mean, if you talk to different like commissioners and people within the state, like game commissioners, like they will tell you like there are positive reasons and times when you should remove roadkill and deposit it. There's a lot of times where the game commission will say we're doing a study on X, and so if you find a roadkill of it and you can deliver it to your local game commissioner, they will then use it to help with the study and what they're trying to do. So it's not out of the realm. Like, it's not insane for somebody to pick up a roadkill in like rural Pennsylvania across the state. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not doing it myself, but I'm just saying like there are reasons to do it.
Oh, okay. I'm with you.
Yeah. All right. I hear it. Okay. Real quick.
How many people are going to go watch Tommy Boy tonight?
Most well. let's do this real quick. Multiple sources. I talked to you about this. There's just the economy, inflation, everything going on. I thought it would be interesting to not necessarily talk about one specific topic for 10 minutes, but I thought it would be interesting to just touch on some of the stuff and just little things that I found. Bank of America is going to cut overdraft fees. Now, you've said you have never dealt with overdraft fees.
No, but I never use a debit card.
Right. So that's just has never been something in your world or at all. I would argue the average person in America has dealt at some point, has either worried about or dealt with overdraft fees with their bank. Bank of America is cutting their overdraft fees from $35 to $10. I personally believe a lot of that is trying to compete with the blockchain and compete with the growing digital wallet market. There are a lot of people. The growth for digital wallets has risen significantly in the last 6 to 12 months, and banks are struggling to find new account members, are struggling to convince people to join their bank. And I think this is one of Bank of America's way to try to compete with that. There's also another bank, I'm blanking on the name of it. They are getting rid of overdraft fees completely. I wish if I can find the name of it again, I will mention it. But both of those just came out in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I wonder about crypto is, of the people if you're old, so I will say 40 and up.
I was waiting to see where that number was going to land. Go ahead.
If you haven't got into crypto yet, are you getting in? And I wonder if it's a lot like the vaccinations. Like, if you want to be vaccinated by now, you are. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, you don't want to be vaccinated. So it's kind of the same thing with crypto. There was a surge, but now the young people will continue to get in. But right now, the young people don't have the money. The old people have money.
Right.
And how many?
This would be the difference with the analogy you use, because I think it's a very clever analogy. The difference is that with vaccines and stuff like that, it's not transitional. It doesn't get passed down generation to generation. Every day, generationally, more wealth and more money is being passed down to individuals who do understand crypto or are interested in getting it. And that's the biggest difference in the analogy that you gave.
Yeah, to a degree, but we're still, and it kind of depends on the age, but there's still enough people who, I was at a viewing this week, and the father passed away, the mother's still alive, but the kids are all in their 40s. So if, and mom's still alive, so they didn't inherit anything yet. But even if they had, as this, is it going to take an extra generation? Because that's why I'm questioning the money that this comes to. The kids that would be inheriting this money are all in their 40s or almost 50. So are they taking this inheritance and then throwing it into crypto? If they're already a crypto buyer, then yes. If they're not, do they start now? That's the question.
No, it's a fair question. So it's going to be interesting to see what banks continue to do. I think a lot of the stuff that banks, I hate to say get away with, because if you're in the market and if the competitive pricing is X because that's what the market dictates, I don't think that's getting away with it. However, there are going to be certain things like overdraft fees, your interest rates, things like that if banks are going to want to continue to gain accounts, that's going to be one of the things they're going to have to figure out is how do we compete with some of these digital wallets? And you can see Bank of America and somebody in the office actually just told us the other bank was Capital One. So Bank of America and Capital One are trying, I think they're trying to find ways to hold on to that market share. I think they're trying to figure out ways.
Isn't Capital One the Charles Barkley, Spike Lee?
Yes.
Isn't that Capital One? Samuel L. Jackson?
Mm-hmm. If we have March Madness this year, you'll see them again. The other one that I want to talk about, inflation numbers released. The AP released the percentage. So this is inflation has spiked to its highest level since the 80s. People are paying more for a host of goods and services, including transportation, furniture, and food. Here are the percentages. Unleaded gasoline is up 50.8% since December of 2020. So essentially a year ago.
Wow.
Yes, 50.8%. And some of these are even more bizarre. Used cars and trucks, 37.3%. Hotels and motels, 23.9%. So if you originally were going to stay, or if you're a traveler, your expenses for staying somewhere are up almost a quarter. Bacon and related products, so your groceries, are up 18.6% right now. That is the one in my personal world of family and friends and people that I've talked to, that is the one that everybody has in common. Everybody, every time somebody comes back from the grocery store, every time somebody comes back from that is their number one complaint, is that 18% raise in food related products.
Well, I think a lot of it is just because of supply chain that you just can't get it. That's why there's fewer car. You drive by car lots, and the new car lots are thinner with inventory. Mm-hmm. So used cars obviously go for more than they ever have. Mm-hmm. And the hotels, I just think that they needed to do it to survive. And they know we've mostly got to a point where people are going to hotels because they need to for business travel, or for, whatever. Sure. They're not doing it for fun.
I think they're making up for lost time, is especially that industry. I think some of the industries on this are making up for a lost year and a half. And so this was going to be inflated regardless of what happened. These travel industries and the things that were really knocked down from COVID, they were going to be inflated regardless. I truly believe.
I'm with you.
The two on here that I think go beyond COVID. Fresh food and seafood is up 10%. I think that is, I don't know if that ever really comes back. I don't want to say it doesn't ever come back down, but like, it is never going to return. It's never going to stabilize. Seafood and fish is up for a long time just because of the competition within the oceans and what's happening in that market. The other one, and I've talked to you about this before, do you remember me telling you about coffee and what's going to happen like in the next 5 to 10 years?
No.
Have we had, I thought you and I had talked about this. Coffee is up 6.9%. I also don't believe that's a COVID thing. I believe coffee is going to stay where it's at. A lot of that has to do with whether you believe in climate change or not. What's happening is there is a green zone for coffee across the globe where only coffee can be made in that zone. And what's happening is because of our weather shifts, that zone is shrinking. So less coffee is being created. And the crazy part is if you look where that zone is across near the, I believe it's more than that. I think it's the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. It has something to do with those because it has to be just dry enough, but it can't be too hot. Like, it has to be this perfect little spot. If you look at the zones, it's mostly water. So as that zone shrinks, it's not like you can just spread out across it. There's just not a lot of land to produce and to use it, the soil that's needed. So I think coffee and I think seafood, out of all those inflation numbers, I could see everything else kind of going through its, this wave. But I think seafood and coffee is there to stay. I don't know if it's ever going to come back down.
All the more reason that I don't drink coffee.
Neither do I. We have that in common. Nice. Let's go through a couple of things real quick. We talked about Capital One, D. Whiteman, Tommy Boy. Do you have a favorite Tommy Boy line? Do you have one that's your favorite?
Fat guy, little coat's always funny.
It's pretty great. Have you seen some of the Halloween costumes of little kids?
No.
Oh, that was like a
I
trim.
like too when he's like, it doesn't hurt here, and not so much here, but kind of right through here.
Yeah,
That's always a good
pretty
one too.
I'll shout out these. I think I know who this is. Game Day. They're not wrong. It is Game Day. Wendy said, someone got paid off. I hope the women in this town take heed and avoid this angle at all costs, relationship wise. That's such a load of crap that they said he's allowed to use their database to stalk women. I do agree, like I said before, I do agree that in the court of public opinion, it feels very stalkerish. Maybe it doesn't to the letter of the law or to the language of the court, but in the court of public opinion, that is the definition of it. Is it not?
I think too, and see, this is where you get into issues with gender. If this was a guy, because it's a guy stalking women, I think you have to. Common sense would tell, and I use the word stalking, and that's not fair. If the guy finding information about women as to where they live, you have to view this differently, I would think, than if he was looking up just all kinds of people's numbers.
Sure.
Because it's more dangerous for the women. And I don't know how the law looks at that, but it should.
We could take it a step further, because if he only looked up minorities, if he only looked up socioeconomic underprivileged, like there's a whole series of things that if he's only looking up those people, again, like you're innocent until proven guilty, but it's to me that's very damning. And to your point, I believe every single one of the 96 were women. And now they weren't 96 women, but every time he looked someone up, it was a woman.
So it's just, I don't know, there has to be, the law has to keep in mind that it's certainly more dangerous as a woman than, when you go on a college campus tour, and I've been on college tours now. I've got one kid that's in college, and I have one daughter who's in college, and I have another daughter who's a senior in high school. They don't talk about the guys when you walk around campus at night alone. They talk to the women about when you walk around campus at night alone. And it's just society knows it's already more dangerous, and to not act on this is it's part of the reason that I'm really surprised.
No, I'm with you. Anything else? Anything else going on in your world? We got about 1 minute.
No, I think I'm good. I'm just getting, gearing up for Dallas Cowboy playoff football.
I was verbatim was about to say to you, I'm really proud of you for not bringing up the Cowboys. And then that
just
was
because the Colts blew it, dude. And you are sitting over there. You can root for us. We're the same colors as you. It looks a lot like you. You can root for Dallas since your team is out.
I don't think I can do it. I don't think so. I do want to, we had talked before. If you get a chance, anybody who's a sports fan, look up the Devin Booker Toronto Raptor mascot video. It's pretty great. You and I were having a good laugh about that before the show. So if you get a chance, look that up for any of our sports fans that watch with us. And that's it. We'll be back tomorrow for a Friday show. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Thank you to Weiss Markets for being the sponsor. And be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
All right.
Wow. You used to have like little jabs to throw in right there. So I've always
I don't really have anything. It's a Thursday. I'm trying to think of I got nothing.
But usually you've just got kind of like the one-liner, you're ready to go. But this week, and maybe it's just because we're not in the same room again. That's my fault. I'll take the blame for that one. The heat's on me for that.
Thanks for covering for my lack of ability.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you tomorrow.
See ya.